What is the value of waiting to hear an answer? Let's just put your question within the context of the spiritual quest, if you want to call it that, or the intellectual quest. I don't think initially you think like that. I think what happens is, as it happened for me, maybe for you, that you take a class and you find the class somewhat curious, it's interesting. And as you stay in the class and as you become more and more contaminated with the ideas of the class, you realize you take home more of the class with you. And the conversation you have with your husband, with your wife, with your friends, has to do more with the contents of the class. And there comes a point where you say, I spend about 10, 15 hours of my waking days just thinking and talking about and feeling about the class. Okay? So you're having a lot of fun. There comes a point where if you're moved beyond the pleasure principle, that you're actually a very, very good student now. It's like a woman gets tired of just being labeled as a girlfriend-boyfriend situation. You want more depth. You say, I want to get married now. Okay? You have moved beyond just this ridiculous Western boyfriend-girlfriend situation. You want some depth, you want more security, you want stability, you want a different stage to be in. So when you are moved away from the pleasure principle, now you find pleasure in a different way, where you really read to understand. You really read to be transformed. You really read to perhaps stop being addicted to certain ways of thinking, to certain ways of feeling. You want the ideas to be alive inside you. And by this time, you make some people your heroes. Plato becomes your hero. Aristotle becomes your hero. Jean-Paul Sartre becomes your hero. And you want to be like them. So you sit and you write. You sit and you think. You sit and you feel. And you begin to write only to realize you can't write well. You begin to think. You can't really, your thinking is all messed up. You begin to write your emotions, your thoughts down only to realize there's so many logical fallacies. You can't write well. And everything about you is just a complete mess. Well, before you can actually sit patiently, you're going to go through a good amount of agitation and frustration. Your confidence is going to go away. You're going to hate yourself because your husband can't understand you, your wife can't understand you. You're going to feel very alone and isolated. And sometimes when you do talk to your companions or your friends about the things that live inside you, you feel misunderstood, and that even pains you more. If by then you don't give up, you don't get chronically depressed. You don't, like many other people in classes, you don't go towards booze or smoking weed, go to these ridiculous cults or these feel-good ideas. Then there comes a point where you're able to find good companionship with misery, just being confused, knowing full well that no one can understand you, and you're okay with that. Read the Gospel of Mark. No one's going to understand you. And that's one of the 8 things about wisdom in the Gospel of Mark. That it's just bound to be misunderstood. And you don't have to be Jesus Christ. If you have a kid brother, if you have a friend who's like 10 or 20, and you try to knock sense into his head that, listen, stay in school, but their priorities are something different, your wisdom is not going to sink in. So the patience comes at a much later stage, where you've come to a place of acceptance in some ways, where you just sit. And if it comes to you, fine. If it doesn't come to you, fine. There is this story that comes from, I think, the Buddhist tradition. It's about a man who was scared of his own shadow. So he started running really, really fast. And the faster he ran, the faster his shadow followed him. And then he died out of exhaustion. Then he dies and sees God and says to God, I tried. And God said, I gave you all these trees. All you had to do is just rest under the shade. And if you have found its shade, your shadow would have gone. There would be no shadow to pursue you. You have found rest. As long as there are shadows following you, as long as there are things you want to feel, there are things you're questing after, you're always going to feel agitation. There comes a point where there is nothing really to seek anymore. The journey has ended. Ended in the sense that from that point on, it's no longer up to you. You have bought me flowers, you've given me candies, you've knocked on my door 1,000 times, you've texted me, you've called me. You've done everything you could as a human being. Now you wait. Am I going to call you back? Am I going to text you back? Am I going to drive to your house and knock on your door? Am I going to get you some flowers? Am I going to take you out for dinner? From that point on, it's no longer up to you, it's up to me. So there is a point where it's your effort, and you do it because you want to. There is something about it that says, go buy this, go do that. There comes a point where you say, I am so tired of doing everything and not getting anything back. You have to overcome the anger, the frustration, the feeling of betrayal, the loneliness. And then you sit home knowing that I just don't like you as much. At least that's what you think and feel. Then maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, maybe 5 years, I'll knock on your door. And maybe by then you'll be married. That's how things are.